You go on social media, we see people saying things about products like, you need this, you have to have it, this is absolutely going to change your life. And the truth is, a product can't change your life.
Welcome back to the show. If you are someone who has struggled in the past with overspending, or you know someone who struggles with overspending and emotional spending, this episode is going to be one that I think you'll really want to listen to. I have on today as our guest, Paige Pritchard. Paige is a creator and influencer. She has built an audience of close to 1 million followers on TikTok, on Instagram, with her very authentic, real, and useful content that is focused on spending, why we spend, how we spend. The content is aimed to help people move away from what social media and technology has really given us the means to do, which is spend very easily. Paige is a reformed overspender herself. We talk about that and how that led her onto a path to help other people to move away from those habits, why we have those habits, how shopping can be an emotional crutch, how it gives us hits of dopamine when we do shop. We talk about this perfect storm for spending, which is basically the confluence of the pandemic happening, social media usage increasing, and then these technology tools like Amazon, TikTok Shop, and Instagram Shop, how it got so much easier for all of us to spend. I love how authentic and real this content is that Paige shares with her audience. It's so authentic, I think, because Paige has been through this herself. So she understands what is the psyche of someone who is who has these issues. We talk about, why does it particularly affect women and how perfection comes into play and control. We talk about what we think is going to happen over the next 6 months and how social media has really shifted from this aspirational look and how aspiring for that can actually be delusional, and how we really believe that hopefully we're on a path now to a more authentic approach to social media, and that creators and influencers are really working to get to a point where their content is authentic and real, because that's what audiences are demanding. People don't want to be on social media and feel badly about themselves anymore. And I think we are seeing this shift. I really enjoyed this conversation with Paige. I think she has an enormous amount of insight on this topic, and hopefully you will get some real interesting tidbits from it. And of course, also please check out Paige's content. We will have links to it in the show notes. With that, I'm going to let you hear my conversation with Paige. Paige, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I've seen your content. Our team has seen your content. You've built a large following, like close to 800,000 followers on TikTok. How did you get into this space, and how did you grow your following so quickly?
I first and foremost view myself as a coach and an educator, and I kind of view my content as complementary to that. I've been talking about overspending, impulse shopping, and just all of the ripple effects of that and how that affects your money for a couple of years. I feel like in the past year, especially on TikTok, it's both TikTok and Instagram, but especially TikTok, things have really taken off. And it really has been because of this de-influencing trend, which we're really coming up to about a year of when that happened, because really the catalyst of what kicked that off, in case maybe people don't know or just like need a quick refresher, is when Michaela Noguera, I think is her name, but she's a really, really big beauty makeup influencer. She's got like 15 million followers. It was Lashgate, but she basically went on to TikTok and made this video about this mascara and how amazing this mascara was. She had a before and after. And in the after, it was pretty clear that she was wearing false lashes. But she was saying like, oh, this is my lashes with the mascara. I think for a lot of people, it really was just like this straw that kind of broke the camel's back, because people were just like, we are sick of seeing all these people pushing products, being disingenuous about what they really are and how they really perform, and just trying to sell us stuff that doesn't live up to the hype of like what you're trying to tell us it does. And that is really what kicked off the de-influencing trend. And you and I were discussing this before we hit record, but the de-influencing trend really kind of started as buy this, not that. It was like, here's all the things that are overhyped and overrated, and you should buy this instead, which I like fundamentally always kind of had an issue with that, because I'm like, that's not really de-influencing. That's just influencing with a different spin on it. Cause I'm like, you're still recommending products to people. You're just saying like, buy this, not that. But I would say probably within the last 6 months or so, I feel like the de-influencing trend has really morphed into more of a message of, you don't need it. Like, can you buy it and can you have it? Sure. But like, just don't buy into the lie or the trap that like your life has to look this way, or you need these products to look a certain way or feel a certain way. And I really saw the opportunity when that happened, because I remember so distinctly. I remember even saying this to my husband, like, there's this like de-influencing thing going on. And it's basically what I do. It's basically my message and like what I've been talking about for years, but people are just kind of calling it de-influencing.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I feel like I need to kind of like jump on this, kind of ride this wave. And I did. And I just started making videos about de-influencing.
What's an example of content that you would share in a de-influencing video?
Yeah, great question. So I don't share any products in my de-influencing videos. I think that's really important to me. Like, I really want to stay true and authentic to that, to be like, listen, I'm not going to be like showing you products or whatever, but I will take a topic and I'll kind of spin it in a de-influencing. So I'll always kind of like start the video of like, okay, here's your de-influencing video for the week. This week, we're going to talk about XYZ. I've done one like this week, we're going to talk about influencer culture. And I kind of talk about like, just remember that these people showing these products to you, of course, they have the best of intentions, but also remember like the context, like context is really important. They could have been sent the products for free. They didn't have to pay for the products. You are going to have to pay for the products. I'll do one on, like sales, or I'll do one on beauty products, right? Like how not to blow your whole paycheck at Sephora, things like that. So I'm never actually talking about specific products, but each video every week kind of has a different theme or topic.
Yeah. I really am very intrigued by this space, because I think the idea that we are kind of moving into this phase of people taking notice to the fact that they are being so influenced about buying, and social media has been so much a part of this consumerism, like buy, buy, buy. I wonder if some of this is a reaction to what happened, because you think about even just how TikTok became so big and successful was during the pandemic, right? The pandemic brought a whole lot of new people to TikTok, so much more buying of stuff. And I think a lot about the idea that during that period of time, I think, everyone was sitting at home and not going out, not living in the real world, so to speak, as we normally do. So we got into this mindset that, okay, there's not as much going on in my life. I'm just going to buy stuff. Do you feel like there was this sentiment during the height of COVID, and now people are kind of coming into a more realistic state of mind and planning for the future?
Oh, 100%. Like, I always kind of talk about like, in my mind, there's been this like perfect storm that's been created with our spending habits. And there's three different parts of that. And the pandemic is one of those three parts. The other part is like part two is social media. And then part three is just changes in technology, like think like Amazon, and just how much our shopping habits have changed with the advancement of technology. But the pandemic is one of those. And I say between those three things that really kind of created a perfect storm. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, I think what a lot of people don't understand about shopping and spending habits and things like that is it becomes an ingrained habit. And for some people, it can even like progress into like a compulsive behavior, just how like drinking alcohol or eating sugar or, just like doom scrolling on social media. And so to your point, I feel like a lot of people used shopping as their emotional crutch during COVID. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of, like, well, what's going to happen? And a lot of, overwhelm and anxiousness. And a lot of people chose to deal with that with shopping because we get just as big of a dopamine hit from shopping as we do from pretty much anything else, from eating sugar, from drinking alcohol. The responses in our brain is the exact same. And I don't think that a lot of people think about shopping like that. Like, oh, this is actually something that can become like a compulsive thing that I feel like I have to do. Like I just call it kind of being in a spendy mood. Like you're just like, I don't even know what I want to buy. I just want to buy something. I'm feeling spendy. The pandemic was a really, really big part of that I think got a lot of people to that point that then once the pandemic ended, they were just in that habit. Now I pick up my phone, I get on TikTok, or Instagram, I go and look at all my favorite influencers that I follow. I see what they're recommending. I go to their Amazon storefront or their Like to Know It, and I see what they got. It's just become this habit that a lot of us have gotten ourselves into that we don't even like realize has become an ingrained habit, but it absolutely is. And to your point, the pandemic was kind of like the kickoff for a lot of people for that. So now it's like you couple in TikTok Shop with that. It's crazy.
I want to talk about TikTok Shop for a minute. For those who are not familiar, can you quickly talk about how TikTok Shop works?
How I kind of understand it to work is it's just kind of like a storefront, and creators can go on and basically promote products kind of like in an affiliate nature. So, like anyone can basically go on and make a video, like anyone can go on and find that unbrush, right? That brush that everybody has, right? And you can make a video about it and be like, hey, here's the unbrush. I love it. Here's me using it or whatever. You link to the TikTok Shop, and then anybody who buys that brush from your video, you get a cut of that. So it's essentially affiliate marketing, which is why so many people have jumped on it. And the problem, problem for some, not a problem for others, because a lot of people are actually making quite a bit of money from it. But the problem has become is like you get on TikTok and it's like pretty much almost every single video that you see on your feed has a little TikTok Shop link on the bottom, which means like in that video, somebody's talking about something that they want you to go buy that they're recommending to you. And I would say it launched probably maybe 4 or 6 months ago. And it's just, it's really, really taken off. And I feel like it's TikTok's way of kind of getting more streams of income for their platform.
And kind of competing with Amazon, if you think about it. So it's not surprising, I think, that TikTok now is trying to, push TikTok Shop. It's almost like TikTok Shop might become very similar to what people are experiencing when they see hashtag ad on a post. Certainly younger generations, I think, have become very sensitive to that, and they might see something pop up in their feed that's got hashtag ad on the video and then just scroll right past it. You think that TikTok Shop, when you see it, do you think that people are going to just kind of see a TikTok Shop integrated into a post and be like, oh, I know you're trying to sell me something?
I feel like it's probably a little bit louder in my world in terms of like the feedback that I get, just because of the nature of my page. But I will say that I feel like a very common comment that I get on a lot of my videos is as soon as I see either like that TikTok Shop emblem or as soon as I seen hashtag ad or whatever, like I'm out. I keep scrolling. I just don't even allow myself to like entertain the video. People will say to me all the time, social media just feels like a giant ad to me now. It used to be about connection. It used to be about following people that I really liked and, getting to know them and learning about different parts of their life and how it related to mine. It's really starting first and foremost with like Gen Z. They're just so much savvier, like from a technology perspective than like any of us were at their age. They're just like, they're there, they get it. And they're the ones that are probably the loudest in my comments being like, I'm sick of this. Anytime I see TikTok shop, I just keep going and I keep scrolling.
Your content is very much focused on giving people insights about overspending. You had your own experience too. Can you talk a little bit about your experience and how you kind of ended up creating this kind of content?
So I'm 34 right now, but in my younger 20s, when I first graduated from college, I was a compulsive shopper. Like my kind of like claim to fame, if you even want to call it that, right? My like crazy story is that I moved back home with my parents the first year out of college, and I lived at home for a year because I had no savings. I was in a ton of student loan debt, and I was like, all right, I'm going to use this year to really like build a solid financial foundation for myself. And I ended up impulse shopping away my entire salary. And when I say my entire salary, like I mean my entire salary, because I was living at home. I had no expenses. And at the end of that year, when it came time to move out, I couldn't even afford to move out of my parents' house. I couldn't afford a security deposit for an apartment. And my parents are looking at me like, what do you mean? Like, you've been living here. Like, what do you mean you can't afford to move out? And I realized at that point in time that my habit around this was so much deeper than just like, I feel like a lot of the traditional advice that you get, which is like unfollow people on social media, unsubscribe from emails, delete your credit card autofill. My issue ran much deeper than that. It was a mindset issue. It was an emotional issue. There's so much like psychology and emotions rooted in why we make the decisions that we do with money. When I first created my Instagram page, I'll say this, in like 2016, I created it saying, okay, I'm going to just talk about anything and everything money related, which money as a general topic is still so broad. But this was the one area that I felt like people kept coming to me kind of like in secret, kind of like in the cracks, being like, hey, I'm in $10,000 worth of credit card debt because I shop too much or I spend too much. I can't find anyone out here talking about it. I'm too embarrassed. I can't talk to my financial advisor about this. He can't help me with the behavior aspect of this. So I really decided to kind of niche down into this space. There had to be somebody out there to do it. And I'm like, I've been there. I understand the struggle. I feel like I have solutions that work. It's always been a problem for people, but it's so much more of a problem today. Yeah. So I was like, I volunteer as tribute. I will be that. I will be that person. It's been great. And I feel like, I think part of the reason that I've had faster growth is because I did niche down so specifically. I am really kind of one of the only people out there like talking about this specific silo of money. Like, all we do is your spending habits here.
What are some of the reasons that we are emotionally spending?
Depending on the person, you could come up with 100 different scenarios and answers. I would say, though, that 99% of my community is women, because just the honest truth is like, this is primarily seen as a female issue, even though like studies have shown both men and women struggle with this. A man is much less likely to seek help for this than a woman is. So when I'm talking about women, I always like to say like, yes, this can be true for both men and women. I always like to make that disclaimer. So one common one is perfection. And I feel like social media has really taken this to a new level, because I feel like all of us kind of want to put forth this like perfectionist image. Like, I want to have the perfect wardrobe and the perfect skincare routine and the perfect little bins that go into my fridge where all of my produce is perfectly stocked. And I want to have 10 different types of ice cubes. Many of us, especially women, already struggle with like people pleasing and perfectionist tendencies to begin with. And then once you add in social media and that bar like just gets raised, and you start to have a view into people's lives that even 10 years ago you would have never had. And honestly, most of it is just curated for social media anyways. Would your house actually look like this if you weren't planning on filming a restocking video and posting it on social media? Like, I don't know, right? Like, maybe so, maybe not though. Perfectionist is a big one. One that you kind of hit on earlier is, which I also see a lot, is control. So whenever you tend to feel a loss of control in your
Mhm.
life, maybe you're postpartum and you've just had a baby, body's different, schedules are different, sleep schedule's different. Maybe you've started a new job. Maybe you're going through a relationship change. Maybe you've moved into a new house. Somebody you love passes away.
Mhm.
Whenever there's something that feels out of control in your life, we often want to regain a sense of that control.
Yeah.
And shopping and spending is just a really easy way to do that because you can always control what you're buying. You can always control what you're spending. There's something actually called revenge spending, which
Mm.
is when you spend your money almost kind of like in revenge of like wanting to regain a sense of control that you felt like you lost. And that's what that was something that a lot of people were talking about post pandemic is
Yeah.
once everything opened up and, it was like, okay, like you can go where you want now, you can travel, you can go out, like whatever. People were going out and spending so much money and it was
Yeah.
revenge spending because they're
Yeah.
like, I've been cooped up in my house. I've been told I can't go anywhere. I've been told I can't do anything. And so now I want to regain a sense of that lost control. I'm going to go and I'm going to spend all of this money that I've either been saving up or that the government has given me with my stipend or whatever. When it comes to emotional spending, there's so many different pockets of it. The important thing is realizing that money is actually never really about money much. Like people think about money and they think of like black and white numbers, that sort of thing. And like, yeah, that's part of it. That's about 10% of it. And the other 90% of it is mindset, emotions, things like that.
A lot of people are in debt, right? Because they're using credit cards to facilitate this life that they want. It's about the thing that it gets you, the experience that it gets you, not the thing itself.
No.
It's what does it provide? What emotional fulfillment and experience does it provide for you? I think that this idea of emotional spending, do
Yeah.
you feel like people are starting to recognize this? I know like people who are probably coming to you for content are already inclined to think that there's something going on with overconsumption. Have you seen a shift? And if so, how recently are you seeing that shift?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a shift. And I think like you absolutely hit the nail on the head because I think my personal opinion on it is like it takes someone going through this process a couple of times to actually start to pick up on the fact of like, wait a second, this is not giving me what I thought it was going to give me. If you look at most like advertising and marketing, it's not actually about the product. They're not trying to sell you a product. What they're really trying to sell you is an emotion, like
Mm.
the future promise of an emotion. Like, hey, if you buy my planner, if you buy my piece of workout equipment, if you buy my foundation, it's not about the foundation or the planner. It's about
Okay.
the feeling that you think that you'll get to experience once you have it. That's the trap, right? Like that's a foundational message that consumer culture is built on. But
Yeah.
really, when we start to get down to it and unpack it, a product can't ultimately give you the thing that you really want, which is the emotion. So coming back to what we were saying earlier, it's like I feel like people are starting to pick up on that. We go on social media, we see people saying things about products like, you need this, you have to have it, this is absolutely going to change your life. And the truth
Yeah.
is a product can't change your life. We get these things and we go through this enough times to realize like I really thought that the Peloton was going to change my life. I really thought that this planner was going to solve all of my time management issues, right? We all have so many examples of that. And once that happens enough times, people kind of start to wake up. And I feel like
Mm.
that's happening because I hear it all the time in my comments of like, I'm sick of this. Like, I'm doing a no buy. I'm committed to no consumption or low consumption. I'm sick of buying stuff that like I'm being told is going to change my life. And then you're on to like the next thing 2 weeks later. So I do feel like there's a shift happening. And I do feel like people are starting to wake up. I've been seeing it happening, I would say, probably for the last 6 months.
How do you see this shaping the next 6 months and how people will think about consumption and social media?
There's so many factors that play into this. And I think another, like one of the largest factors is just the economic climate that we're in. I feel like for the past year, you've heard Is the recession coming? Is it not? Inflation, cost of living is rising. There's a lot of people whose dollars just aren't stretching as far as they used to stretch even 6 months ago. I feel like for those of us who are in this space, the biggest pieces of advice that I have is having empathy for where the average person is probably at and really taking a look at your audience. The life that they're starting to live and the things that they're starting to suggest just are not resonating. They're making more money. They're buying a lot of things. They're consuming a lot of things. And the average person in their audience is just like, I don't live that life. That doesn't look like me. I'm seeing a lot of non-aesthetic creators. They're like, I don't live in a pretty house. My kitchen's really outdated. My kids wear hand-me-downs, but it's this authenticity. I think that that's really what's going to start resonating with people. That's kind of like the new wave is like, can I relate to you? Does your life look like mine? Do I feel like I can trust you? And are you authentic? And so now people are really looking for, I want to follow people online that I can trust what they tell me, that I don't feel like I'm just being sold a bill of goods, that I can relate to them and they empathize with where I am. They understand times are harder right now. My dollar isn't stretching as far. I don't have as much disposable income as I did a year ago, which means I have to be even more selective about what I'm choosing to buy and how I'm spending my money. And I want people who understand that and can empathize with that.
It's almost like a shift in what social media was, which was aspirational. I aspire to be as organized as that person. I aspire to be as, well-dressed as that person. That hasn't gotten me anywhere. I feel still hollow to going back to this emotional spending. What is it that we're trying to fill? What voids are we trying to fill? Well, that didn't help me get there. I bought the things that supposedly were going to get me there, but it didn't work. Now what I want is real.
Yeah, I think that's like the new tagline. It's like aspirational to authentic. I feel like there is still an audience for the aspirational stuff. I think that there always will be, to be honest with you. I think some people just enjoy that and they do like to see it. But what I'm hearing a lot is I don't want social media to make me feel bad anymore. The aspirational has gotten so aspirational. There was still an element of relatability. So it was aspirational, but it was still like, I can do that. I can have it. And now with a lot of creators that you see, it's like beyond aspirational. Like this is kind of a delusion. It makes me feel inferior and I don't want to feel that way. So I'm just going to go follow people that actually feel authentic to me.
I love that you just said that. It's like, a lot of aspiration, it can be, if you kind of play it forward, it really can be delusional, right? It doesn't mean that it's realistic for you to get to that place. Do you think social media is going to wane in terms of the interest level over time because of that?
My personal opinion is I feel like we're always going to have some flavor of social media. Like, I don't know, like in 10 or 15 years, like what Instagram will be like or what TikTok will be like. I think that they'll probably still be around, but like truthfully, in 10 or 15 years, there's probably going to be something else with technology, things like that. I think there's always going to be a flavor of social media, but I think it's like probably every 10 to 15 years, you're going to see a shift in like what phases out and what comes in to take its place.
So much insight into the space. If people want to follow you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So Instagram and TikTok, my handle is at overcoming_overspending. That's where you can find me. I also have a podcast too. It's called the Money Love Podcast. It's different than your average financial podcast in that we talk a lot about the things that we talked about today. It's not just like the surface level number stuff. We really dive into like why you're doing what you're doing. So we do a lot of episodes that aren't about money at all. They're about mindset. They're about emotions. They're about psychology.
Thank you so much, Paige. I really appreciate you talking with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you're an influencer or a brand that wants to work with us, please feel free to email us at info@shespeaks.com. Until next time.